All right. Hey, I'm Tom Conlon, founder and CEO of North Street, and I'm here with my good friend, Ben Berman. Ben, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. So I have the great privilege of being the Certified EOS Implementer for North Street and for a host of others creative agencies, as do some of my teammates. So looking very much forward to sharing kind of how we do our thing.
Awesome. Okay, so can you briefly describe what EOS is?
Yeah, so EOS is a complete system to help people get what they want from their businesses. And really, it kind of falls into three major categories. One is getting everyone aligned on here's where we're going and how we're going to get there. We call that vision. Number two is the traction piece, because a lot of times in creative agencies, we got these grand visions of where we want to go, but how do we actually go and get there? How do we make it happen? So traction is the execution side of things. We help with that part. And then we call it healthy as the third, and really it's about team health, which is not to say that a team is unhealthy. It's just teams that always have, high performance teams always have a chance to be better and better and better. So we work on that piece as well. So taken together, right, complete system where you know where you're going, we get everyone on board. We have a system of executing where creatives can be creatives, but still get things done. And then, of course, teams just have a great time doing so and get better and better together.
Cool. And obviously this blueprint is detailed in the book Traction, but you're an implementer. So that mean what? Like I can take the book and run with it, but I'm better off if I hire someone like you?
So we say, I mean, obviously I'm somewhat biased, but we give the book away for free as a marketing tool for us because we want people to try it. And the idea is it gives you just enough to get going. And it's sort of like the difference between reading the book and trying it on your own is sort of the Greyhound bus version. You can maybe eventually get to your location. Sometimes you're going to end up somewhere totally, off track across the country, or you can take the private jet version. And, this is just catered experience, get you there far faster and have a much more enjoyable experience along the way.
Yeah, I think in my experience, I had heard about the book for quite a while and finally picked it up, read it. I actually picked it up, read a lot of it, then put it down for 6 months and then read it again. And then when I finished it, I was really excited to kind of bring it back to my team. And I made the mistake of like I wasn't like, I kind of did it secretly. I'm like, I didn't say like, hey, we're rolling out like EOS. I was kind of like, hey, let's do our core values. And then I started picking pieces out of it. And so it just it wasn't successful. And so ultimately that's why we found you as our captain to help us sort of just lead us through how to do it. And I think that's the other thing too, is that it's really helpful to have an implementer be like the outside party. And maybe you can talk about that a little bit. Cause I struggle being like, oh, hey, there's this like thing that I want to bring in and I'm not so totally sure about it, but let's try it. For us, it was better to be like, okay, this guy knows it and is gonna, bring it to us.
Yeah. I think there are two parts to what you just said. So the first is sort of what often happens where people pick it up and they kind of put some of the pieces together and it works moderately well. I mean, each piece in its own right is very helpful. Certainly the stuff you can pick up in the book, but it's kind of like building a car where if you don't have all the components, you might have 3 wheels, right? But the engine doesn't work, or you have the engine, but the axles aren't turning correctly. So it sort of doesn't work unless it all goes together. And that kind of piecemeal approach is part of the reason why so many people come running to implementers even after they self-implemented. I'd say at least 40% of my clients have tried to start it on their own or done some kind of startup. So we encourage it. Part number two, I think is the one that you've experienced is it's impossible to really fix a system that you're part of yourself because you never can really be seen as objective, no matter how much you mean well. We say it's like heart surgery. In theory, you could do it on yourself. Better to leave it to a professional. And if you want to get success, right, the best companies, the best athletes, the best performers in the world all have coaches. So it's sort of having that guide on the outside who's going to help you go to the place faster, even if, you know, they're not the creative genius that you might have in your company.
Right. Right. Okay. And then, so what about, what kind of businesses is this for in terms of like size and scale?
Yeah, so it's really funny because you know, there's a sweet spot, right? Around, you know, around a million in revenue and up. But I mean, we've worked with companies that have been literally one person, zero revenue, all the way up to billion-dollar companies. So it runs the gamut, which is ironic because it sort of goes as far as, you know, we always talk about niches and niching down, and we'll get to that, I'm sure, later in the conversation. But for us, it's really about this. Do you want to get to somewhere that you're not quite sure how to get to? Are you appreciative, respectful, committed, right? Willing to be vulnerable, willing to actually do the work? And it's not so much work, but for us, just like as we went through for you, and I'm sure you'll share, it's about really getting down to the psychographic of people who want to get to another place in their business and want help doing so. So maybe that's, you know, you want to get to $100 million. Great. That's perfectly fine. We can help do that. In some cases, that might be businesses and leadership teams that just want to have less on their plate. They want the business to control them less. So it runs the gamut as far as reasons, but as long as that kind of appreciative, respectful, want help, trying to get to the next level, those pieces are there, EOS works pretty well. I mean, we have a running joke that says, you know, EOS works in businesses that have people in them. So I know we're headed to an age of robotics, but we've worked from everyone, like I said, to you know, very, very small companies, multi-billion-dollar companies, to even there are two country bands and a rock band whose roadies use it because they got to make sure the pyrotechnics don't go off at the wrong time, and you know, keep so it's about really managing human energy, and that's what we're all about here.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've definitely spoken to a construction company that I think was like a $30 million a year business, and they were running it, and I think they were even running it in like their subdivisions. You know what I mean? Like they were running it, and then their units were running it, which is cool. But I've also spoken to, you know, people who are like a team of two. You know, maybe it's like a solopreneur and his partner, right, are sort of running a family law office, and they're sort of a little skeptical. And I think, like, honestly, as long as you have, I'm not sure it's going to work with like a leadership team of one, but if you can have like that other person, even if it's just one, to like to work with and go through the meetings with and the system with, I think two is fine.
Yeah, well, you know, it's funny. I do a fair amount of advising and mentoring other EOS implementers, both in the implementation and, of course, the biz dev side of things. And we run our businesses, in theory, we're businesses of one with sort of fractional support all over the place. We run our businesses on EOS. It's the
Right.
only way to be successful. So we are kind of the case studies. But you know, Tom, you're not a huge business when you started, right? And you operate extremely well with the team you have.
Yeah, I mean, we were seven when we started with you. We went down to six during the dark ages, about a year ago, actually now, right? Like the
The
first,
pandemic, yeah.
yeah, the first, we went down to six during that time, and now we're actually up to 10 people. So but our leadership team is four, right? So like our leadership team is like was more than half the company and now is almost half the company. But I mean, you know, for me, it's just about getting the right people on that team. We were a leadership team of three, but then we hired somebody who came from another company that was running EOS.
Yeah.
So we were like, what are we gonna like not let this guy like participate in our meetings and like show us how it's done? You know, bring a new perspective to it. So yeah, We've been running it great with a overall team of 10 and leadership team of four.
Yeah, and he's been an awesome addition, and that's typical, but kind of like what you were saying before with the subdivisions is the idea behind EOS is not for it to sit in the ivory tower of the leadership team. Eventually everyone gets involved, and that's kind of the magic behind it. So
Yeah, and that's you know, we've been rolling out the state of the company since pretty early on. I think like probably a little after we started with you, we started rolling that out on a quarterly basis. And that's been great. It's I think the people who are not in the leadership team, but know that we have this like 90-minute meeting once a week, they love sort of seeing what comes out of what we've been working on and what they're going to be working on and sort of where the company is headed. So that's always like a really great, always a really great time to like rally everyone around kind of what we're doing and where we're going.
Yeah. And for listeners or viewers who aren't familiar with the state of the company, right? It's talking about where you've been, celebrating those wins, where you're going, so that everyone understands kind of how they fit, and then where we are right now. So, Tom, I wonder, you even had in your case some pretty skeptical creatives and developers in the beginning. I'm just curious to hear. I'd love to hear, because I know the story about kind of how that ended up. I think there were some surprises, if I remember correctly, at how well people took to it.
Well, I think that's one thing I kind of want to talk about is like, when reading Traction and then sort of reading more about just EOS, it's clearly and purposefully like a templated system for running a successful business, right? And so in a creative business, we are skeptical by nature of anything templated, so for me, that means like, we're not going to grab a WordPress shelf, a theme off the shelf and just sort of stick your pictures in it and call it a day. And we're also not going to, take a logo design from our shelf of logo designs and just sort of tweak it a little bit. And so when it came to EOS, it was like, okay, wow. So this is like, there's definitely some very strict guidelines and guardrails in terms of like how we do things and the tools that we use. And so I was skeptical, you know what I mean? I was just like, I don't know about this. Like, shouldn't we be, we're a creative agency, like, shouldn't we be super creative? And so that was my own skepticism. So I'd kind of, I'd love to hear kind of how what you've, in working with other creative agencies, if you've sort of heard that skepticism too, and like how it's sort of netted out.
Yeah, all the time, and for better or for worse, I've sort of there have been a high concentration of different businesses that I've worked with, probably because it's in the New York area, there are a lot of creatives, and yeah, I literally every time I can say that's sort of a question that comes up. And I find it actually, I want to get your perspective on it, but I find it actually becomes liberating for two reasons. So one is, your job is to be creative in the work. Your job is to do amazing, like what you just said. So if anyone hasn't seen what North Street's able to create, I mean, you got to go and check out the stuff they're able to do. This is not off the shelf. This is not kind of like, just pull off some kind of random thing. It is truly fantastic work across the board, and it has its own flavor, and it's beautiful, and it brings an experience. And we do that same thing with EOS, right? It's sort of like, yes, there's this template, but within it, the whole reason for an implementer is this is not something you can just pull off the shelf. There are going to be nuances that are going to be specific to everyone's organization. So they're going to be sort of things that have been tested out at this point hundreds of thousands of times over hundreds of thousands of meetings and tens of thousands of companies, certainly many creative agencies, where it's been field tested. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel on how to run the company, right? It's sort of like there's certain things, no matter how creative you are, you're not going to walk around on your hands just for the sake of doing so. There are things that we do that are uniform that help us be more efficient, right? It is simply more efficient to walk using our legs. At the same time, there's the flexibility within it where it actually gives you, I don't want to say, we often say a sandbox, basically, where what you do best, you're able to play in that space. And as a company, you're able to unify that energy so that people are able to be really creative and really effective without necessarily going far afield or breaking the system or doing things that are not going to be effective for the business. So, Tom, you've done such an amazing job kind of figuring out not just the work type that you're great at, but also who you work with. So I'd love to hear your perspective to that regard.
Yeah, I think that the thing that really that I've been saying lately is that like, we're a creative business, we do creative work, but like, why be creative about why try to figure out a creative, completely unique new way of running a business? You know, like there's a tried and true way of running a business, and you know, and EOS is like, it's a system for like making sure you've got the right people in your company, making sure that you're targeting the right market, that you know, you're profitable. You know, sort of like the business 101 things that you don't learn as an entrepreneur. You know what I mean? Like as an entrepreneur, you just start running your business, and then all of a sudden you have to, you're not running your business, you're just working, right?
Right.
You're doing the work, and then all of a sudden, for me, it was 7 years later. I'm like, oh my god, like I gotta get like, I gotta figure something out, because like all I'm doing is like designing and building websites. Like I need to like run a business. And so for me, it was like, yeah, it's like I don't need to like be creative and invent my own way of running a successful business. I can be creative in the work, but I actually need, like you said, it's liberating. Like I want something. I want a system that's like, here's how to run your weekly meeting. Here's how to hire people. You know, here's how to like, here's how to target, here's how to go after your target market. Um, all that sort of stuff. So for me, like you know, you said the word liberating, and I think it's great. It's like, yeah, like I'm gonna be creative in the work, and but like, you give me a system for like how to run a business as a person who didn't go to business school and is, you know, just figuring this stuff out. Like, yeah, I'll take your system, and I'll run with it, and I'll love it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny, even as you say that, we have teams that, you know, are of the highest, you know, Harvard Business School and all this pedigree, and what's nice about the system is, like I said, it's able to flex to the people toward, you know, I just wish, sometimes I wish I could show just a panoramic of all the different client types and people who are such stark raving fans. But it's not to say that it's just this kind of stuffy business school stuff. Included in this is how we rewarding and recognizing our people, right? How we helping people get excited about milestones, because the creative journey is not linear and is not necessarily, you know, okay, we're just going to get huge wins every, you know, 8 seconds. It's helping recognize the progress along the way, so the team is galvanized and excited, and also making sure you're doing the right work. So, I mean, in your case, I get such a kick out of the work that we've done as far as customer personas, or we call it target market. The other thing that you know, and I know it just sounds sort of like this fantasy land, but when it works, it really is when you think about who you work with and you're really deliberate about that piece. That's another thing that just makes your life better, because you're able to, you know, you understand, right? Because it's the work you do. You are great marketer, thinkers. You're great at design. You're great at understanding how to get into, but when you have to take your own medicine, it becomes harder. So to have an outside person help sort of facilitate a conversation, you're now in a position to say, who do we really love working with? Who's our best? Like, so I said before, certainly virtually anyone with a business could benefit from EOS. That doesn't mean I want to work with anyone who has a business, right? There are psychographic things. There are things about the way that I want certain elements of the way that people are that I want as my clients. And I know you've done the same thing. And the more that you've kind of, as opposed to going in a wide flashlight version, but sort of gone down to a laser focus, whether it be in the work or in the actual people who you want to go after and companies you want to go after and work with. I'd love to hear your perspective, because I've seen it be quite successful.
Yeah. I think there's like the two interesting parts about that are, you know, through EOS, we defined our core values, right? And and I really like the way that EOS lays that out in the book. And that was actually the one thing that I did bring from, like, I read the book and I was like, hey, we're gonna do our core values. And we since refined them with you, but you know, the idea is you get like the sort of like top for performers, and that doesn't mean like, that's more like quality versus quantity. It's like the best, you take the best people in your organization and you sort of write on a whiteboard, like, what are the characteristics that they imbue, and like, what are the things that make them great. You write all of those adjectives on the board, and you do that for everybody, and then you sort of circle them and you put them into groups, and then you cancel out duplicates or synonyms, and then all of a sudden you narrow it down to, we came up with 6. And and the thing is, it's like, okay, these are the values that define the people who are really great here. Therefore, this defines us. You know, and I think that that was like a really interesting revelation, right? It's like you talk about core values and people are like, oh, right. So I'm just going to like come up with this stuff off the top of my head. And, you know, a lot of it's like a lot of stuff people come up with are either aspirational or it's table stakes, right? It's like, oh, we're going to always tell the truth. It's like, okay, well, if you're not doing that already, you shouldn't be in business, right?
Right.
Or it's like super aspirational and doesn't describe who they are today. And it's like, if that's not who you are, then that's not who you are, you know? So that there was that one piece where it's like defining our core values, and what that has allowed us to do is it's like, okay, that's how we hire. Right now, we hire against our core values. That means that's who we're looking for in terms of like, if someone's going to work with North Street, work for North Street, they're going to have to embody all of these core values. But what it also is it's how we filter people it's how we filter clients as well. Right.
Right.
And so it's a people thing. It's people, whether they're working for us or we're working for them. It's like, if I get on a call with you and I don't know, you blew me off 3 times, and then when we finally connect, you're not, you don't strike me as the type of person who listens or takes, you know, or puts yourself in other people's shoes. Like empathy is one of our core values. It's like, well, okay, then it's not going to work, right? Like if all of a sudden, if you're already like X'd off of like 2 of our core values, then I can already tell you that this relationship is just not going to work. And so let's save ourselves a bunch of time. And so that goes into like, and so that's related to the sort of like target market stuff you were asking about, which is that like, yeah, okay, so through EOS, we were able to define, and we already sort of had this down, but it made us refine it, like the types of businesses that we want to target and that we're most qualified to target, which for us is financial services, professional services, and construction, right? Those are the types of businesses that we market to, because we've done a lot of work in that field and we really like working with those folks. But when you get into actually developing the user personas for the customer inside of that business, it goes back to the core values. So if I look at all of the psychographic stuff we did, where it's like, okay, the CEO or CMO of one of these financial services companies or law firms, say, it's like the person that I'm describing is a person that embodies our core values and that I'd want to work with, right? So it's all related.
Right, right. And the 2 things that really to pull out from there from a core values perspective that I think is, one is that whatever your company is, it's unique, right? I mean, there's a culture at every company, and we want to be really clear about this cultural code in the core values. And we're using those to hire, fire, review, reward, and it enables people to create a context. So I love your core values, to be honest. One of yours is moxie, right? And it enables you to have a conversation with someone who maybe is not showing moxie as you define it, or on your team. Doesn't mean that they get the scarlet letter and they're gone, but there's a shared understanding of like, hey, here, this is what we're about, right? Right? Empathy. If you're not, like you said, if you're not showing empathy to your fellow teammates, to the clients, to everyone, you don't fit in at North Street. And frankly, you're probably not a good client either. So
right.
What I think is really cool though is, now that you've really figured out who your target market is, your 3 uniques are tremendous. And we say 3 uniques, we say the things that North Street does that their competitors simply cannot. And the 3 uniques are, for North Street, and I'm happy for you to share them, but I get so pumped up just having listened to you describe them over and over, is listening, getting it, and wowing. So we listen, we get it, we wow. To me, you're able to simplify what makes you tremendous, because so many agencies say, certain things that they do, and they're going to give you the highest quality work product, and they're going to be fast, or they're going to promise all these things. But what you're able to do is hone down into, this is what makes us different. So people's ears kind of perk up. And when you can simplify it in that way, all your messaging, all your delivery, all your client experience is going to be around those same things, as opposed to saying, oh yeah, we're 47 different things, and then no one remembers
Right.
that.
Right. Yeah. So for us, it's, we listen. That means that like, we're told all the time. I mean, we actively ask for testimonials from clients, and after a project launches, and it's funny, you look back at them, and like more than half of them just say like, they really listen to us. Like we would talk to them, they would listen to us. It also means like not really taking a request at face value, right? It's like, okay, like, let me hear what you're saying, or let me hear what you're asking for, what your end goal is, and maybe what you're saying is not how we get there, but I understand what you're trying to get to, right? So that's one of our three uniques. The other is we get it. That just speaks to the fact that we work in your industry, you know. So like if I'm talking to somebody in the financial services or professional services world, like this is what we do. You know, this is we speak your language. You're not going to have to give us a financial services for dummies book on day one to get us caught up on on how to speak the language. You know, this is stuff that we do on a daily basis. So we get it, and then we wow, which for us that just speaks to the work that we do. You know, we really pride ourselves on not creating stuff that you've seen on the internet 1,000 times, right? I feel like I say this to prospective clients all the time, but there's been this really like disappointing trend in professional services design where you sort of just do what the other guy's doing, or you take the template that everyone else is using and you put your stuff into it. And we don't do that. Like we're going to create you something completely custom, completely unique that we hope to add to our portfolio. But we're sort of like circling around this. But one of my questions is like, how does EOS help creative agencies sell?
Yeah, we've been talking about it to some extent. There are a multitude of ways. So to the first end, obviously it's about figuring out who your real target market is, right? And that doesn't mean anyone who will pay you. It means who do you best work with? Who are the companies? Where do they exist? Where do they live, right? So for me, I work with clients all over the country because I'm able to go virtual. So geographic is less important for me, but for some agencies, they want to be able to get into an office and not have expenses and sit down with the people and go eye to eye. And first and foremost, who is your best possible company, and then who at the company are you going to be interfacing with to make that sale? Once you've done that, we actually build the list, right? We're actually going to go and figure out who are all of them, where are they, whether it's 50, 100, or 1,000. Let's get clear on who they are so that we can make sure that we're networking and we're communicating and we're able to help find our way to those best experienced clients. Because those best experienced clients, those target market clients, are going to be the ones who are willing to pay you the most, who are going to be appreciative of the work, who are going to understand the process, and ultimately be elated because you're giving them something that is not just cookie cutter off the shelf, right? It's not just something that someone who's just going price shopping is going to beat you up because they're, well, this company got it for, a third of the price. Yeah, well, their thing looks terrible and there's no experience there, right? I mean, you could go online yourself and do it and it'd be even cheaper. So that's part one. Part two is with what we said, the three uniques are differentiators. And this is your secret sauce, right? This is what makes you unique in the marketplace. And we really get deep on that, on what it is that you do better than everyone else so that you can simplify it. And really, again, so for those who know, marketing is an exercise in simplification and repetition, right? Let's boil it down to what we want them to hear, and let's have them hear it all throughout the time. The first time they see our website, when they go through and they're in the pitch process, they're hearing it again. Our leave behinds are reminding them of it. So there's no way that they're going to leave the conversation with us and not be totally clear. From there, we build a proven process, which is we actually map out for their purposes and for yours as well, what is the customer journey? What is the client journey? So you're able to take those things that you do uniquely and actually show, hey, we're not just saying it, we're going to show you how you're going to experience these things at every step along the way. It simplifies the project process because that you've already set expectations. It closes the deals because you're already moving towards it. As soon as you're in that meeting, you're already moving towards the close. It's sort of like people have a natural desire to keep moving forward when it comes to a process. And you're able to actually express it in really beautiful creative terms, especially for creative agencies, that enable it to have that aha effect so they know you're not practicing on them. They know you're the real deal. And then also we have an optional guarantee, which is dependent on, hey, there's this last second objection. Here's our guarantee. We're going to make sure it happens. So, for instance, for us in EOS, every session that we do is 100% guaranteed. If we do not get paid a dime unless we've delivered 110%, we like to say, of the value that we've promised. So it makes it really easy for creative agencies who are skeptical to say, hey, this sounds really good. I want to take the dive, but I'm not sure it's going to work with my team. Is my team really going to take to it? Is it really going to work for us? Well, let's take away the financial risk and let's go forward because we know it will. So in an EOS perspective, that's the way of course, we take our own medicine. But yeah, that enables us to start the conversation. The piece that's often missing though, is beyond the marketing strategy. Is if I can go there, Tom, is in the execution piece. It's figuring out who's going to be accountable, who's going to own which piece in the process. How are you going to put the structure together so you know what your pipeline looks like, and so you know how to move the things forward. What activities are actually getting done? So it's taking the I would say financial or business rigor and of analysis and all this stuff that kind of seems overwrought, cutting it down to the bare minimum that you need in order to be successful, so it's super easy and lightweight, and then putting it all together so you know that the pieces are moving together. You have a marketing machine that works, a sales machine that works, and frankly, an operate or delivery team that works really well, so that you create more and more referrals just by the work that you do. So we're looking at sales from every step along the way. And Tom, I'm curious for you to speak to that.
Well, there's a lot there, Ben, so I will. So I think that first of all, I just say that there's the three uniques and the proven process are great, are just great pieces of marketing to put into your pitch decks or your intro decks as well as your website. It's just really like it's that sort of thing. It's like, oh, these guys have it down. Like they've got their stuff together. And I'd also say, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think that the thing with the three uniques is that it's three different unique things that together are unique to you, right? So I think that's something that people get maybe intimidated by, but also maybe confused by, where it's like, three uniques, you know what I mean? Like, how am I going to come up with three things that only North Street does? And I would say that, like, there's only a fraction of businesses worldwide that could say that they do one thing that no other company on earth does, right? So I think it's a fool's errand to go and find three different things. I think the idea of the EOS is that, okay, this is your recipe, right? Like, these are the three things that together make North Street or make your business completely unique. Is that kind of how? Do I have it right?
That's exactly right. So in your example, right, maybe some others listen really well, and maybe some others get it, and maybe some others provide really wow experiences, but very few, at least in your space, do it exactly that combination of the three that well. So for us, you can go and look, and you can do strategic planning with someone else and do vision, right? Or you could go and have an execution system that'll help you get some more things done. And you can do team health exercises. But the reason why EOS is dominating across all the industries is because there's nothing else on the planet that gives you all three so accessibly, right? The strategic planning and where we're going to go, and getting everyone, not just at the high level, but everyone on board, actually getting it done. So the systems, without making you have to do all kinds of extra work, right? And then, of course, having you have a great time doing it. I mean, we've been through some really amazing things where two members of the team had some real tension, and they're great guys. I mean, they're great people on your team. You have kudos to you for using your core values, because core values are things that don't just go up on the wall. You actually have to use. And even then, there's friction sometimes between different departments by design. And we've been able to really like go head to head and have really constructive conversations that started out uncomfortable, but ended up getting the team that much more united and effective together.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest things we've gotten out of EOS is just this culture of open and honest communication, right? It's like, I think I went from being like, oh, I am the owner, and I pay all these people to work here, but they could take it or leave it, like, it's just a job. And I think that, like, we've really transformed into, like, it's helped me realize that these guys care, like, my team cares. They really do. Like, they care about not just their own job, but they want to do, like, what's best for the what's best for the company, what's best for the client. And so that knowing that enables us to have super really real conversations. And we've actually got our L10 later today, and have some juicy topics on the on the agenda that I'm
Right.
actually I'm looking forward to it. You know what I mean? It's like, there's no longer this like, what is it, like elephant in the room, or like it's, if there is tension, we're able to address it and cut through it really quickly, you know, because it's like, what are we even like, you know, what are we even like talking about here? We're talking about like improving the company, and like what's best for you, what's best for you is what's best for me, is what's best for the business, the bottom line, and the client, right? And so yeah, that's been one of the biggest, that's been one of the biggest things we've gotten out of it. And I kind of want to go back to the marketing stuff before, just because you mentioned it, but you didn't really explicitly say it, which is like the scorecard, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
that's another piece of the marketing puzzle when it comes to helping creative businesses sell, is that like we you know, we've got this scorecard. I think we're looking at like 50 metrics a week, but we're going through it really quickly because we report on it ahead of time, ahead of this meeting. But it's like our metrics cover like, and they're leading and they're leading and lagging, right? So it's like things that we're reporting on that happen, but also things like things that speak to the future. So for me, for new business, it's like, yeah, it's like, how many new business, you know, how many new business meetings did I have? How much time am I spending on outreach a week? Because those things will lead to, you know, those things will lead to revenue. Whereas just reporting revenue we do it, but I like having a mix of both. You know what I mean? And our scorecard metrics also have things on it like number of socials on the calendar. You know what I mean? Number of like one-on-one employee meetings on the calendar and stuff like that. So. Yeah, talk to me about scorecard a little bit, and just how you've seen what it's for, and you know how you're seeing creative agencies implement it.
Yeah, and just to clarify, so across those many metrics, right, those are across multiple scorecards. So the idea is what we're doing, we're boiling it down to, generally speaking, 5 to 15, mostly leading indicators. So it's not a dashboard. Dashboard tells you, here's what happened, right?
Yeah.
What we're looking at is, what do we need to have happen in order to make sure
Yes.
that everything is on track? And you know, it's pretty simple. What gets measured gets done. So what we're able to do, and this is the magic behind it, is it's at all levels, right? And this is where it gets a little bit kooky sometimes, because you can think of it at a high level, but how are you going to do it for your, you know, for your sales team, if you have a sales team, or your marketing team, or you know, on the dev team, or even certainly when it comes to creative, like how do you add, you know, quantitative rigor to something that is so fluid,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what we found is by engaging team members to really help them define their own sort of paths and get a sense, it all fits together, right? So in layman's terms, or in layperson's terms, I would say, you know, from a scorecard perspective, it's, what do we need to do every week in order to be successful across all the departments? Let's make sure we're tracking those things, because if any of those things are off, right, you know, if either we're not having the meetings like you said with our employees, or we're, you know, not having the meetings with prospects or leads, down the line we're going to feel that pain, right? Employee leaves, or we're not able to close what we want to, or a pipeline is bare, but we want to catch it before, right? Before we hit the iceberg. So that's kind of the magic of the scorecard piece. We're able to take rocks and say, what are we focusing on this quarter in particular, above all else? We're able to build process so that we're giving, and when I say process, I am not talking about the 500-page manuals that, you know, these big corporates create, that like you have to have a form to file a form to like have a creative thought. That's not the idea. The idea is like, let's just create the guardrails or the sandbox so that we can all do it in a way that's going to work for the entire team, right? And then, of course, you know, with the accountability chart, as we call it, not an org chart, it's who is really accountable for what, who owns what piece. So it all kind of fits together. And as we get it down through the organization, we have an accountable team who's able to flex their creative muscle, who's able to make sure that they're doing things that are going to ultimately benefit the business, focus on the particular foci for the quarter, and of course, work together really, really well by following all the different things that we put together. So I kind of went off scorecard a little bit there, but it's because that aha moment is where it all fits together. That's where the thing really runs. That's where the system, we say 80% strong in the 6 key components, right? Vision, people, data, issues, process, and traction. It all fits together. And that's, like I said, why we give the books away for free so often, because it helps get people excited and starting to do the right things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the how the, you know, connecting the different pieces in that electric system so it all the lights light up correctly together, and you're able to adjust course if one seems to be off track.
Cool. So I have something fun and interesting coming up, and I'd love your perspective on it. So
Sure.
we're a creative agency that runs EOS, and it looks like we're about to start working with our first client who runs EOS,
Oh, cool.
which is a law firm. And so I would love to hear. I'm excited about it, but I would love to hear kind of your perspective on like what happens when two EOS companies get together.
I mean, you're teeing me up. Everyone knows it's magic, right? Because you now have two well-oiled machines who understand each other. And part of the benefit of EOS, frankly, is it's not like we're creating such a new language, but there are terms that people use. And it enables people across industries to really collaborate. So if you're in a peer group or you're even have a bunch of friends who are entrepreneurs, at this point, it's spreading like such wildfire. Like we're looking to, in the relatively near future, get to 100,000 companies running on EOS. So chances are you're going to run into some. Two things happen. Number one is companies that run on EOS like to work with other companies that run on EOS, period. It's why so many people are putting those badges on their website, because it shows, hey, we work well. And if you understand it, you already know, right? You're running in your own company, you already know. So it's going to help you sell more. And then as far as the kind of collaboration understanding, right? They know law really, really well, right? You know creative really, really well, but you speak the same language. So when you're speaking about certain things, they get it and you get it. And in fact, even if you weren't working together, you'd be able to sort of collaborate and share ideas and best practices and learnings that otherwise you'd be so caught up in the industry jargon, it wouldn't make sense, right? KPIs and OKRs and this and that. It's like we're able to boil it down to the simplest thing. And one of the things that we're so proud of is it keeps it simple. So, it's not like they're going to speak legalese to you. Not that you wouldn't understand it, you know it quite well, but you're able to, it's just sort of like greater than the sum of its parts, because they understand how well you work and you understand how well they work. So even whether it's in the sales process or actually in the implementation process, there's this is a word that's beaten up almost as much as core values, but there is a synergistic flow that happens there when you're able to kind of cut through all the nonsense noise and speak the same language.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, it's funny. It's like they already know, they already have had a look under the hood of how we work, right? Even though they sort of like know how we operate and like what we value and sort of how the things we prioritize. And like I, to a certain extent, know how they operate under the hood, even though, I don't know they're still like a prospective client. So it's kind of like, right. It cuts through just so much of like the mystery, right? And the funny thing too is, or the interesting thing is like our proposal to them contains things like our proven process and our 3 uniques and our core values. So I just know that they're reading it and they're like, oh my God, like, yeah, we have these things too.
Right. Right.
So it's exciting.
Yeah. And it's comforting, right? It's comforting
Yeah.
knowing that when people see how well it works, it's comforting knowing, oh yeah, they've got it under control. This is the mark of a good business, right? So that's terrific. I'm really excited. They're probably going to be a good client because EOS tends to select for good people and people who fit your target market. So
yeah. And they've been running it for a while. So I agree. If someone's stuck with it if someone's been running it for years, you know that that's a certain type of company, a certain type of leader, right? So definitely excited about that one. All right.
Yeah.
So talk to me about implementation and how long where it starts. You know what I mean? So let's just say I've read the book, I've heard of the book Traction. People are talking about it. I've gone to, I've spoken to other couple of entrepreneurs and half of them are running EOS or, I remember for me, I was at an event called Nerve for the entrepreneurs organization. And it was really funny. I was sitting, there was sort of like hundreds of us there, and we're from the East Coast, running our, people who run their own businesses, all different sizes. I might have told you this, but I remember speaking to people that week and just speaking to businesses way bigger than mine, $50 million businesses.
Yeah.
I've had my business for 30 years and it's a $50 million business. And I remember asking everybody, was like, so what was the turning point in your company? Like, what were the things that you did? And it's funny, people would be like, oh yeah, we did this, or that was when we acquired whoever. And then like, seriously, like at least half of them were like, oh, right. And then we started running EOS. And I was like, okay. I was like, right. Okay. So I've read the book. Great. Now what? And that's funny because that's the same week I was introduced to you, but, through a mutual friend, but tell me, like, okay, like I'm ready to go. Like this conversation between Tom and Ben has got me fired up. What do I do now?
Yeah, yeah, and I'm happy to answer. Obviously, this is one of my favorite questions, but before I even do, I'll say what's funny about that is, it's those companies that are really successful, almost without fail, are really running on EOS, right? They've used an implementer, they've gone through the process that I'm about to describe, and not just read the book. So when you start to see piecemeal, that's where it starts to usually crumble. It's running on EOS is, in this case, and I know because you actually have told me before, it's people who've worked with implementers, right? People who've worked with someone like me who's really going to help them guide. So first things first is you can always call me 212-517-1836. I'll always take the call. If I'm not there, I'll get back to you quickly. Or Ben Berman, so ben.berman@EOS Worldwide. So that's like, all right, you're jacked up, you want to hear more, then what happens? So we'll have a conversation, make sure that, it seems like it's a good fit. And then from there, we do something called a 90-minute meeting. And the idea here is we want to make sure we're going to go forward, our time is our inventory. So we want to make sure that it's going to be a really tremendous fit and you're going to get everything you want out of it. So we, for free, right, we'll have a meeting where we invest our time and really take you through what the engagement looks like. Everything you could possibly imagine. Obviously, our proven process is involved, but from the inception and from day one all the way through the journey, what happens and kind of what you'll feel at different stages. And what I think you can speak to, Tom, is it sort of finds the experience is it just levels up, right? Day one, it's like, holy crap, I can't believe what I've just learned. We're going to go and put this into action. And then we have support and there are phone calls in between, and we're making sure that, we're tightening the screws. Then we go to the next level. Oh, we're looking at the vision, and now we've got the vision to go execute. That's super exciting. And what's nice is the stuff that's not really in the book is once we've built that foundation in the beginning, we're bringing in all kinds of tools, team health, maximizing your cash flow. If you're going to have a merger and acquisition, I mean, pretty much anything you can imagine in business, we have a tool for, but we got to get the engine, we got to get the foundation built first. And then we build. It would be like, trying to pick out a chandelier before you even have the ceiling up on a house. It doesn't make sense, right? It's going to come crumbling to the ground. So we actually take you through the full understanding of everything you need to know to move forward confidently and everything you need to know in the experience. And in short, basically, we say the journey on average is to go from, I've known nothing about EOS to I have a company that's super strong in EOS. We say it's about 2 years, but you're going to feel massive jumps at every step along the way. First day, first month, first quarter, and onward. What I found is a lot of my clients stick around because even though they know EOS really well, just having an outside observer and facilitator brings that added value. And we're always trying to, like I said, go and provide 10x value to what we're expected. So the journey, your expectation is, depending on your size, could be a year, could be 2 years, could be longer. We'll get you up on the EOS side, but it's that added kind of intangible effect that just drives you forward and forward and forward. That most cases, my clients have stuck around.
Yeah, I'll say that, reading the book Traction is super inspirational, but it's also super overwhelming.
Totally.
I think until it gets to the last chapter, like you're reading it and you're like, whoa, there's like a ton here. And then in the last chapter, he starts to tie it together and like, okay, here's where you can start and all that. And it starts to like demystify it a little bit. But yeah, I think the important thing that to understand, at least with working with you, is that like, okay, you definitely can't like put everything into place all at once because you'll go insane. But there's a I get a methodology to like starting here, getting all of these pieces built, then build on top of it, then build on top of it, then build on top of it. And I think we're at the point now where it's probably been 2 years, right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
right. But like we still get super like we still need you for our quarterlies and our yearly. It's like we get super pumped up. You know what I mean? It's like and also like not just getting pumped up, but having that outside voice to just sort of I don't it's part referee, but it's also just it's part referee, it's part coach, it's part like I don't know, hype man.
Certainly in my case, not everyone's that way, but I'll say, yeah, absolutely. And I think you touched on what is such an important point that often gets missed is people look at this thing and they read the book, they get all excited and they go, oh crap, how the heck am I going to find the time to do this? The nice thing is it almost without fail, there's very few exceptions. Like, we're going to maybe have to look at the scorecard. That's going to require a little extra time a week, but it's not adding more work on your plate. It's just changing how you do certain things, right? So in virtually all cases, we're just changing it. Now we're going to take time to make sure that it's right. And we're going to make the time investment in the process. But on a day-to-day level, it's not like it's this huge lift where you're having to have a second job to just bring in EOS. This was built. I remember when I read the book, I was like, I don't have time for this, right? But this was built for busy entrepreneurs. That's the whole point. The whole point is if you're sitting around with all the time in your hands, there's nothing going wrong and you're good to go, EOS is probably not right for you. But if you're busy and you're trying to find more time in the day, or you want to get to a place that you're not currently at, you're probably going to be a perfect candidate for EOS. And what's more, you're going to enjoy how simple and easy it is to implement.
Yeah. And I'll just add on to that, just like, when you first read it, some businesses, especially maybe smaller ones, are like, wait, a 90-minute meeting once a week to just talk about the business? Like, I don't have time for that. And I have to say, if you're not doing that, like if you're not spending at least 90 minutes a week just with your leadership team talking about like issues and opportunities, things that need to be fixed or things that we can jump on and improve, I don't know what you're doing because it's insane.
Well, right. And if you think about the structure of the meeting, it's you're probably doing a lot of this stuff like sort of ad hoc anyway, right? So that 90 minutes, the vast majority of that is solving issues. The worst thing to do is go to a meeting where it could have been an email, right? The pandemic has shown us that meme that's been going, went around the beginning, like we've learned what really could be emails. Meetings that are mostly reporting are wastes of time. Right? What we're looking to do is build the culture of let's get the issues on the table. Let's see where we're at, so we make sure that we're measuring it and making sure we're on track. Get everybody super tight together. Continue to build the team, and then let's actually solve these things for good and not just kind of swat it away, because the gnat is never going to go away if you don't deal with the infestation, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm with it 100%, in case you can't tell, because I've been on the other side and I felt the pain and I felt that I don't know if this is going to work, and I've had it work for me as a business owner as well. So
nice.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, you're busy. I'm busy. Anyone watching this video is busy. So let's get on to the next thing. Any parting words?
Yeah, my parting words is just that our passion is really to help, and that even if you're unsure, an introductory conversation, we love to have them. So if you're kind of on the fence and maybe it's not a budget thing, maybe it's not a time thing, take the 15 minutes and make the call, and we'll tell you honestly if it's a fit, because like I said, we have limited time inventory and we only want to work with great clients like Tom, who are going to get great success, are committed, have moxie, right? Have empathy, are versatile, are self-aware. I'm looking at his core values right now. So if you're sort of not sure, I would say reach out and we'll find out, quite honestly. And part of the appeal is we'll turn people away if it's not the right time. So that would be my parting shot. And my only other parting shot I can say is if you haven't gone and looked at, for those of you who are seeing this sort of through my network or the EOS network, if you haven't gone and seen some of the work that North Street is capable of doing, and you fit that target market that Tom described, go run. Do not walk to your phone, your computer, and go look them up, because they are phenomenal. And of course, part of the reason they're phenomenal is they're running on EOS.
All right. Thanks, buddy. This was awesome, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Likewise, man. Thank you, and always a pleasure to help.